time like this?
Sure.
I mean, so let's talk about, first of all, the very basic premise of your book before we dig into the nuts and bolts of it. So
Right.
talk about the very basic premises of, and I know it's hard because I put you on the spot, but let's talk about common sense, the very, very basic premise of common sense happiness.
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, just the name common sense happiness. And I took a lot of time to choose that title because I just don't think it's that complicated. So it really, really is, if you think about it, it's common sense because we have choices. At least in this country, we have a lot of choices. And I think that people tend to overcomplicate things that really are not complicated. I mean, shooting people into space and bringing them back alive is complicated. That's complicated. And we can do it, and we can repeat it successfully. But people seem to think that figuring out how to find their own sense of happiness and peace and contentment, it's so complicated, and I just don't think it is. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not hard, but really it boils down to attitude and habits and beliefs. And if you get that, if you would just willingly or at least be open to accept that I have choices, because really this is all about my belief system, my attitudes, and the habitual way that I move through the world, and the habitual way that I ascribe meaning to things. And if you just kind of take a step back and go, well, you know what, those are all things, if you think about it, those are all things under each individual's control. So even when we can't control what's going on in the world, in our town, in our home, a lot of times there are people, especially right now in this lockdown situation, that feel almost like a prisoner in their home. Maybe home life isn't so good, but you still have a choice on the meaning you're going to ascribe to that. You have a choice on how you're going to strategize to change things moving forward. So, it doesn't mean that you can't just instantly change your mind, be happy, and get unstuck, and life is, joyful in a moment. It's not about that, but it is about you absolutely have the control to move in that direction and start to change things, beginning with a shift in your thinking. As I always say on my podcast, that's the whole thing. When you're stuck, or when you need a reset, when you need to level up, overcome a challenge, none of those things can happen until you shift the way you're thinking about things and the meaning that you're applying to things. But you have to start there, because otherwise what happens? People go out and think, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And then they do something externally and make a change, like a diet or an exercise. Those are the most obvious, prevalent ones, right? And they can't sustain them because they haven't changed the way they think about things. So it's not sustainable. So happiness, common sense happiness, is all about, look, this is not rocket science.
Yes.
It's just, these are the things. So I've got 5 really simple, basic principles. And these are principles, I call them the life amazing principles, because I think that life is like a maze, and I think it's amazing. So if you want to create an amazing life, right, then just start. If you're a beginner into personal growth and self-improvement, and it's important to you to start feeling like you have a sense of control over your life, this is a wonderful way to start, because there are 5 basic principles that you can start implementing into your life, shifting your thinking. This is about shoring up your mental diet.
I love that. We're talking with Loree Bischoff here on the Jiggy Jaguar show, and my name is Jay Izso. I am also known as the Internet Doctor, and I get to occasionally, James brings me in. Evidently, his lips get tired, and so he brings me into as the reliever to do that. And so I get to bring in my 6 feet 4 inch, 250-pound body into the studio and do that whole thing. So, Loree,
plus you have a better studio than mine.
So, Loree, one of the things that I think that is difficult for people And I think people are hearing you loud and clear, and you're right. It does start with our thinking.
Yes.
But I think what happens is we are so focused on our circumstances. And I think what's hard and difficult, and I think I would love to hear from you, where do we start? How do I'm thinking about people who come to me and come to you too and say, but you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand what I've been through. You don't understand, how do we make that shift from being so focused on that, the thing that is in front of me to making that mind shift?
Right. Well, first of all, I think that not walking in each other's shoes in the past doesn't change the reality of where we're at right now. Doesn't change the reality of where you have found yourself now, where I'm at right now, and it doesn't really affect where you're going. So I think this thing that people, I think it's a habit. It's a habitual mindset to use your past experience as that's your story as the reason that you can't do or be or have what you want to do or be or have now moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't, that it's not something that in some cases, depending on the, how extreme it is. I mean, sure, if you're a person with PTSD, you've got some past trauma to work through, right? And that may be really a big obstacle that you just need to deal with and work with a professional on in order to kind of open you up to being able to move forward without the obstruction of that constantly coming up for you. But if you're someone, let's say, you're someone that I came from a dysfunctional family and my dad was an alcoholic and, whatever. I mean, that's a very common thing, the dysfunctional family. And, every man I ever have cheats on me and, the story. And I think that it's just, for me, it's very important to keep steering people to the present.
Right.
And again, except in an extreme case where there's other serious stuff that needs to be worked through with a professional in that area. But if you are somebody that is relatively emotionally stable and you have the will and the desire to change the course of your life and change the direction, for me, what I like to do is, when things come up from the past, and it's still a block, an obstacle, we talk about the meaning, and we have to change the meaning of that, what that experience was, in order for you to be able to shift the headspace and find something that you can work with, that you can use moving forward. Otherwise, it uses you and it keeps you in kind of a victim mentality. And if you can't get out of that victim mentality, I mean, again, that's a stuck place. So changing the meaning of those past experiences or circumstances is really important when they're a block.
I could not agree with you more. And here is where I think people have to reevaluate, and you kind of go through this in the book actually, is you have to reevaluate your past as not necessarily a negative, but you got to find the positives in those things. Because, listen, I have said on occasion, I have said, listen, if you look up the word dysfunction, my family's there. Okay. And that's the picture you're going to see is dysfunction. But the truth of the matter is that dysfunction was so good for me, because if it wasn't for that dysfunction, I would have never gone on to want to be interested in psychology. I would have never gone to grad school. I would have never want to seek out why, my parents were the way they were and why, their generation, because my parents had me so much later in life. Mm-hmm. And they came from the silent generation, and going back and understanding that here, both of my parents were born in the midst, of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Right. And so what did I expect? And so when you start seeing that, those are really gifts.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that that's so key what you just said, Jay, because until you are willing to stop blaming your past parents or spouse or circumstances on where you are now and why you can't move forward, and are willing to look at that and come at it from a new perspective of understanding. Yes, but these are human beings too, and these are the tools they had in their tool bag, and this is just how it went. So I think allowing yourself to be a little softer and a little more understanding about what may have occurred and how things went for you, so that you can be able, it allows you to let it go.
Right.
And to use it, again, to your point, use it as, wow, yeah, but now I have such a greater understanding of human behavior, at least in this, situation. And then you can use that for the ways that you want to be of service in the world now.
Her name is Loree Bischoff, and we're talking to her about her book, Common Sense Happiness, 5 Principles for People Who Want to Stop Whining, Bitching, and Suffering. And she's doing this here on the Jiggy Jaguar program. And by the way, if you have not downloaded the Jiggy Jaguar app, that is something you should do immediately, because friends do not let friends not download the Jiggy Jaguar app. So make sure you do that. And also, you know what? Make sure that when you're ordering your stuff off on Amazon, and who is not doing that today, why don't you go to the Jiggy Jaguar, it's jagshow.com. Why don't you just scroll down a little bit, click on the Amazon link from his show, because that's a great way to support his show, is through buying your stuff through Jiggy Jaguar. It's not going to cost you an extra dime. It just means he gets a few extra dollars to help support and his show and all the things that he's doing. And so, Loree, I one of the other things that you said in the intro to you, as you were talking, is we have to get our mind. We have to start talking to ourselves in a way that we start changing our thought patterns. We have to start. Yes. Self-talk has to be we have to start breeding that in our brain. But I think one of the things, and then you use the word habit. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that people have to understand, it requires discipline up front, but discipline is only discipline until it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Because then it's no longer discipline. And right. I think what people forget, and you have a great story in your book, but this whole thing of literally people are running your life, right? You're in your modeling career, and people are running your life and telling you, go here, do this, and then some people are telling you you're not going to make it, you're not going to, right? And there's people out there who are listening to the show who are going, oh, I can totally relate to that. I feel like I've always been told what I'm supposed to do. I've been told I'm not good enough. I've been told that I can't do it. And changing that mindset does require initially intention and discipline. Mm-hmm. But long enough, then it starts to become a habit. Mm-hmm. And then, and I think people want to know, well, how long is that going to take? But we don't really have we can't say, right? I mean, we don't really know what the time frame is. Everybody's different, or I got that wrong?
Sure. No, exactly, Jay. I mean, everybody's different. How bad do you want it? How much time are you willing to devote to becoming that version of yourself? I mean, it's really I think that evolving the way you think, stretching your mind, exercising that mental muscle isn't any different than going to the gym and exercising, your biceps and your triceps and your quads and whatnot. If you only go and do it twice a month, you're probably really not going to see any improvement. You're just going to get sore for a couple days. And and you're going to maybe feel good that you did it when you were done, and yay, rah, rah. And I think it's like that with this. If this is something that you really are seeking, if you are a seeker, then I think it becomes a way of life. That's how it has worked for me. It's just become a way of life, and because it feels good, and because the more you feel like you are learning to master little parts of yourself, the way that you think, the way you react, the way you respond, the way you manage your emotions, as you start to realize that you have more and more control over that, and the more you learn and the more you become aware and you catch yourself, the more you like that, because it feels good, because you suffer less. So the more you want to do it. it just becomes, something that you will learn a little bit, and then you'll practice that, and you'll be good at it. It becomes a way of being, and then you seek out the next thing, and then you do that, and you practice it, and it becomes a way of being or a lifestyle, and then you seek out the next thing. It's a constant evolution. So how long does it take? Well, if you're a true seeker, it never stops. It's your entire life. I've been on this path since I was a teenager, thank you to my mother. And I am now 59 years old. And I don't see that the more I learn about myself, the more I know about how much power and control and freedom I have to expand and evolve as an individual, and how much untapped potential there is, the more I realize I'm not even close. I have so much more work to do. And to me, that's exciting, and it's fun because it's endless. I just think that that's super exciting and inspiring.
I agree with you. It is inspiring. And here's the thing, I think, that if people are paying attention, because you talk about this in your first chapter, happiness, to be or not to be, is the name of the first chapter. But I think, unknowingly, I'm not saying it's a conscious thing that we do, and you call them Band-Aids, but unknowingly, we are going to fill ourselves with something.
Yep.
Whether it's drugs, alcohol, we're going to try, and you say this so beautifully, you keep trying to apply this external Band-Aid to an internal problem.
Right.
And
yes.
I think, I think what happens is, for many folks, is they don't even realize that they have started applying all these Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in so many different forms. I mean, because it doesn't have to be something like alcohol or drugs, or it could be sex. It could be, it could be
shopping, could be gambling.
Right.
Yeah.
Eating chocolate.
Yes.
And I know I'm treading on dangerous ground for some of you out there, but the truth of the matter is, you're filling yourself with something that is dissatisfying in your life. And you point this out so beautifully in your chapter, this first chapter. And I think I don't think we're doing it necessarily consciously.
No.
But getting that shift, being aware of it, right? Being aware, I think, is probably critical. Don't you think? I mean, have awareness that you're filling yourself with something.
It sounds, again, really simple, because it is. Again, it's common sense. The more you are aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, the more control you're going to have over how much of that you want to do. Is that good for me? Is that moving me toward what I'm really seeking, or is it actually moving me further in the other direction? So I think developing a sense of awareness over why you're doing the things you're doing is really important. And again, that's not a complicated thing, but it's hard because it's creating a new habit. Most people are moving rather mindlessly through their day. People eat mindlessly,
Yes.
We eat mindlessly. It's like, just imagine, if you're standing on the where the screen is in a theater looking out at the audience. I mean, everybody is just going like this. Nobody knows what they're eating.
Yeah.
They're just mindlessly doing this. You're not paying attention. So it's just really important to understand that if you are doing something that you don't feel good, you feel uncomfortable in your life, something's missing. You're either uncomfortable, you feel a void, or you are unhappy and suffering in some way. So you try to fill that void or ease the pain. You try to move yourself out of whatever that version of pain is for you, and you try to find a way to bring pleasure there. So, because nobody likes to be uncomfortable. So number one is, I think, developing the awareness that discomfort that you're feeling, either physically or emotionally, mentally, is trying to tell you something. So rather than trying to run away from it, sitting down and listening of, what is this trying to tell me? Because you just got to sit down and have the talk with yourself and listen, because you know, Jay, everybody's got the knowingness buried somewhere in there, and it's just allowing it to come out. But that's a very difficult move for a lot of people, because if they admit that they know what's up for them, then that means they either have to take ownership, take responsibility, and then make a shift and make a change, which is hard.
Yes.
Or they just go, well, they're going to feel guilty. They know what's wrong, but they're not going to do anything about it. And that's hard too. So it's a very tough place for people to be in. And so, yeah, you go for the chocolate, or you go for the gambling, or you go for the, whatever Band-Aid it is. And you just, ultimately, after maybe years or decades of this, you get sick, because all that discomfort and angst and stress and unhappiness, results in an explosion of our chemical factory in our body, right? And then it manifests itself in some form of illness or disease. You're going to pay.
You're so right. Her name is Loree Bischoff. Her book is, by the way, it's common sense happiness. That's just what it is. And what she's talking about here on the Jiggy Jaguar program is really, she says it over and over again. It sounds like common sense. It is common sense.
Yes.
The problem is that our difficulty is that it's not always easy. And
right.
That's the thing. Loree, one of the things that I was thinking about, I really strongly dislike the phrase comfort food. Because that says it all, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Does that not really say really what we're doing to ourselves, regardless of what it is that we're looking for something to comfort us? And you're offering an alternative here, because the alternative is much deeper than that. And in terms of, okay, so you're putting these Band-Aids on. All right, we need a shift. Right, we need to shift ourselves somewhere here. We need to have a shift in our thinking. I want you to talk about for a second, because I think you kind of addressed this in a roundabout way too. Is that gratitude is really a strong piece to our shift. Let's talk gratitude, because I find gratitude to be very powerful in the mind shift when it comes.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Jay, because it's hard to be. It's really difficult to stay in a emotional state of extreme negativity when you are expressing and realizing that you're grateful for something, gratitude on some level. It's as easy as breathing. It's just right there for us. It's right there. All you got to do is do it. All you have to do is just do it. And I know that's really, really difficult. I don't mean to oversimplify it or minimize the extreme discomfort and hardships that many people have been in and are in now. But again, to suffer less, that's such an easy, right there place to start. There is just always something that you can be grateful for. And it may be just the smallest, littlest thing for you, but it's a start. And I think that when you really, if you get into a place of focusing on that, a lot of people say, I can't meditate. I don't believe in meditating, or it doesn't work for me, or I don't do it right. I don't know what the right way is. If that's not your cup of tea, I think that's super cool. No big deal. There are other ways to get yourself into the state of sort of feeling connected with yourself and finding some place of peace. And I think gratitude is a wonderful way to do that. So like for me, that's what I do every night when I go to bed. I lay my head down on the pillow, and the last thoughts I have as I drift off to sleep are everything that I'm grateful for. And
That's awesome.
It's just, it shifts something in you. It really truly does, if you can sincerely find something. Now, the trick is you can't bullshit yourself. You can't say, well, I'm so grateful that, my partner, got wasted today and beat the crap out of me, but hey, I'm alive. I mean, you're probably not grateful for that. But so I'm not saying, you've got to be honest. So find something that you can be honest about. I'm grateful that at least I, can still walk and talk. I can see, I have all my senses, and I have the ability, should I choose to take it, to make a change. I'm grateful for that I have a choice, and I'm working my way there. So you can find something. And I think the thing is, you've got to find the thing that at least you can be honest about. You know what I mean?
I do.
Start.
Yeah.
I do. I so agree with you. And there's so many ways to do this. My habit is to wake up every morning and write down 7 things I'm grateful for. And the reason I choose to start my day that way is because, and by the way, and when I say 7 things I'm grateful for, some days I am just grateful for that cup of coffee that I have in my hand.
Oh, yes.
Right? I'm just grateful for the cup of coffee. I'm serious. And then I may add to that. I'll take the cup of coffee and I'll walk and I'll look out my window, and I've got this beautiful backyard, and I'll see my garden, and I've got a tomato starting to change colors, and I'll just go, you know what? I'm really grateful that my garden's growing, and I've got these tomatoes that are going to be ready to eat, in just a few days, right? I mean, it sounds so simple, right? But then it can get a little deeper. I'm just grateful that I am not the same person that I was yesterday, that I've learned something from yesterday, and I'm grateful for the person I am today, right?
Yeah.
And I am, you start moving down that path. For me, what I love about doing them in the morning is that regardless of what happens in my day, I go back to what I wrote in the morning at night. And you know what the truth is? Those same 7 things I wrote first thing in the morning are absolutely just as true at night. You know what? That cup of coffee was really, really good.
Right. It's true. It's true.
It is. It does, and it changes you, right? I mean, it does. You can't help it.
You can't help it. And so if you want it badly enough, you will at least try it, because it works. And I do a similar thing. I wake up every morning, I look literally out my bedroom window, and I see all of the mountains leading up toward Yellowstone Park, and it's beautiful. And I go, I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful I get to see this every day. I'm so grateful, that I get to get up and I get to make shit happen today. I mean, there's just so many things that you can still be grateful for. Yes, I'm grateful, that, my plant, I haven't killed it yet. It's still alive. But and I'm so grateful, right, that the point is, or for me, and like you say, I love getting up each day feeling like I know a little bit more, or I'm a little bit wiser, or I'm a little bit more conscientious than I was the day before. I'm a little bit more of something, that has helped me evolve as a person each day.
Yeah, I think gratitude, there's that old cliche, gratitude changes attitude, but it really is true. If you will stay with it, and, if you'll stay with it, and every person that I've ever interviewed, I don't care who the successful people that I've ever interviewed, has always included that there's some sort of a gratitude piece in what they do. But there is another thing that you kind of allude to too, and that is sometimes we got to turn off the noise.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because we can be thrown so much negativity at us that we also have to be really, really intentional about shutting down the noise, because, right? I mean, as you point out, right? That can have a negative influence on us. So we have to be really careful of that. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. You have to really be your own gatekeeper of what you're going to allow in and dwell on. So really that's the important thing is, sometimes you're in a situation where you just can't get away from the conversation around you. And maybe it's really negative. And, that's part of actually one of the principle too in my book is called Hold Your Power. And that's really what we're talking about here is it's learning to control how much you're going to allow what's going on around you to affect your own thinking and your own emotions. Sometimes you don't have a choice, and you're in a situation, maybe it's a family gathering, or maybe it's a work thing, or maybe it's a whatever thing, and it's just coming at you and you can't not hear it. But you don't have to agree with it. You don't, in your mind, you don't, even if you don't want to verbally, be like, I don't want to be butting heads with anybody. You don't have to. But in your mind, you don't have to be in agreement. You don't have to give up your power and, decide that you're going to breach your own integrity by agreeing with something you don't agree with. Or maybe maybe you agree a little, but it's too negative and you'd rather just do your own thing. So I think that the thing is, as long as you're not in agreement with the negativity, and if you can remove yourself from it, even better. Sometimes you can't. But in your mind, you can have your own discourse going on. You can go, whatever, that's their thing. Sometimes I get to a point where I see just craziness going on or hear ridiculousness being chatted about, and I just kind of pretend in my mind like I'm watching a show and I'm just amused. I just look, people are, human beings are nuts. I mean, let's face it.
That's awesome.
As a psychological professional, I am grateful for that because I don't have a job without it. Okay, I'm just going to just say that right now. I'm very happy that we are very unsettled and neurotic. I got to be honest.
It's just we're all, and I mean that with love. I really do, but because really, again, back to technology and the amazing advances we've made, and literally shooting people into space, and we can do what we're doing right now, which was unheard of just a couple decades ago, less than that, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, being able to do what we're doing. But there's some things we just can't seem to get right after thousands of generations, and we just can't get our shit together. So you go, why exactly is that? Well, you know what? Maybe, we have to realize that we're all evolving at our own pace. Our level of consciousness is what I'm talking about. We're all at our own level of consciousness, of conscious awareness. We've got a collective consciousness, but we're all individuations of God or source or whatever your belief is. That's my belief. And we're all, doing our thing. And sometimes we all connect and things are fluid and we flow and life is good. And then we don't. I mean, we're all just at these different places. It's barely controlled chaos, right? But so back to, sometimes I just sit back and I go, look at us crazy human beings. Look at what is going on in the world. This is fascinating to me. So the thing is, it's not that I am making fun of things, but I just think that keeping things in perspective so that you don't let what appears to be negativity and tragedy completely rule your emotional state, because that's what happens if you don't manage how you're looking, the meaning you're applying to things. If you don't manage what these things mean and have a higher possibility, a higher reason, a faith that, there's a reason, even if you don't know about it, then it's just going to be really hard for you to find your version of happiness. Does that make sense?
No, it does. We're talking with Loree Bischoff, author, Common Sense Happiness, and here on the Jiggy Jaguar program. And she's blessing us with her time, and she's just outstanding, by the way. Get the book. All right, it's available Barnes & Noble, bookstores everywhere, but available on Amazon, available on her. You can go to her website, actually. It's Loree Bischoff. Bischoff.
Right.
Sorry, I lost the C, is what I did there. I apologize. So it's LoreeBischoff.com. You can check her stuff out. We're talking about, matter of fact, we're talking through Common Sense Happiness, and we're talking about boundaries, actually, is what we're talking about, maintaining your own power. And I think boundaries, there's a misconception about boundaries, and you really brilliantly stated it. I think when we set a boundary, we have this boundary, we're going to walk away from it, right? I mean,
Yep.
if you look at the people who are in AA, right, they make very clear boundaries about where they're going to go, who they're going to intersocialize with, who they're going to be, and that's not always the case. So then what happens is you have to set, like you said, you have to set a mental boundary. And by the way, it's too late. It's too late if you haven't thought about it. Right? I mean, if you can't walk into a bad situation if you haven't thought about what boundaries.
Right.
You can't set those boundaries on the spot, right?
Yes.
It's pretty difficult. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, because part of being able to know what your boundary is knowing kind of what your personal constitution is. What are your values? What are they, and where do they stop and start? Are they something that you only apply in this situation, but not in that situation? How much integrity do you have around what your values are? So if you haven't done that in your life, sat down and went, okay, these things are really, really important to me. So, the most obvious things that most people have, honesty and loyalty, a work ethic, basic fundamental, do no harm. Basic fundamental things. But if you're not living them with the utmost integrity, then they will easily be breached depending on the situation that you find yourself in. You can easily not implement your boundaries if you've decided, if you know what they are, but you have to know, I think, what those values are. I think you have to have some sense of a personal constitution in order to be able to do that.
It's so true. It really is. You have to have it up front. You just can't wait till the last moment. I want to move on a little bit because there's something else that you kind of talk about a little bit. And I know you don't phrase it this way, but it's something that I've picked up from the Special Operations Forces guys that I have interviewed, and whether they were in Black Hawk Down in Mogadishu or whether they were Navy SEALs or Delta Force and they always every one of them talked about, you're only as good as your training. Because when things go bad and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're worn out, the only thing you have left to rely on is your training. And I think when you talk about this whole idea of making shift happen and then changing your chain, there's this part of me that sees that, you have got to continually practice those thought processes. You have got to continually not just practicing them in your head, but then you have to make them take action.
Right.
And
you have to implement.
Right, and you have to implement them. But you can't just, again, you used it, so I'm going to take your example. If you decide that you're going to go to the gym, okay, you are not going to see results the very first day you go to the gym.
Right.
I'm sorry, you're just not going to. You have to be there regularly. As you point out, you can't do it 2 days a week, 2 days a month.
Right.
You have to be doing it regularly. So let's talk about, how do we once we get to this mind shift, let's talk about putting that into action. What does that look like?
So first of all, I think part of it is going back to something that you said that you do every day and that I do every day, which is I start my morning with these thoughts and I go through this routine, and then I end the day with this routine. So that's like doing reps in the gym. That's like, right, picking up a weight and doing your reps. And that's what you do, right? So that's exercising that mental musculature and making it stronger. And then I think I kind of go with, when I'm working with people, most people need to start with baby steps. Most people are looking to make a change in their lives. It's the rare person, not impossible, but it's the rare person that can do a 180 over a weekend and say, that's it, I've had enough. I've been going this way. I'm going to completely go this way and I'm done. It happens, but not that often. Most people, so I call it my Kaizen coaching. So Kaizen is the Japanese business philosophy. Are you familiar with it? So it's just constant. It's just constant improvement. You are constantly and consistently improving and evolving whatever it is you're working on. So I kind of adapt that to, all right, what are we working on? What is something that you feel you could shift, put into action, take an action step right now that's going to move you in the direction that you're trying to go. And let's pick something that you feel pretty confident that you can be successful at. So, if you have a person that has never worked out in their life and now they find themselves, overweight, out of shape, and sick, you're not going to say, I want you in the gym 5 days a week. We're going to, first we're going to meet out in the field and do calisthenics, and then we're going to, go inside and blah, blah, blah. And then after that, you're going to run 3 miles. You're not going to do that. They'll die. Right? So, and they'll never come back.
But it's really true. It's really true what you're saying here, because the reason why people don't shift their brain, the reason why they don't follow through on the action is because they try to do too much.
Too fast. Yes. And so one of the things that I always end up saying with clients is that, look, however you are right now, let's say you're a 40-year-old guy, however you are right now, physically, mentally, emotionally, you have been practicing to be this way for 40 years. So that means you're really, really good at it. You don't even have to think about it. Just like driving a car. You don't have to think about putting the key in and putting your foot on the brake and putting the car in reverse. You just do it, right? You don't have to think about it. So understand that to start making some shifts like you want to make, it's going to take practice, and it's going to take layering things up. We're going to start here, and then we're going to build on that. We're going to get good at it. We're going to build on it. And then we're going to get good at that. And we're going to build on that. And that, I think, the action steps along with the constant practicing of shifting the way you're thinking, those things together, just incrementally over time, now you're practicing a new way of being and doing and thinking, and more likely to have effective, lasting change.
Yeah. By the way, we're talking with Loree Bischoff here on the Jiggy Jaguar show, jagshow.com. And by the way, download the app because it's just a great app, and you can listen to past shows. You can listen to this show, and you can listen to everything that Jiggy does, and or as one of his friends calls him, Jigmund Freud.
Jigmund Freud,
so,
that's right.
We love Jigmund. Well, I think, Loree, one of the things that you, again, and brilliantly have pointed out here is, we have learned a set of behaviors and a set of thought processes over the course of our life, however long that life is.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to think about it. And so then we come back and we have to change that thought process. And in incrementally making these small changes, and I love baby steps. As a matter of fact, Loree, you remember the movie What About Bob? With Bill Murray? This is back in the 90s, and he was this neurotic guy. And who was James, help me? Who was the guy who played the psychiatrist?
Bob? Good Lord.
Yeah.
That is going back a few years, sir.
Yeah. So I can't remember who the actor was that played the psychiatrist, but so here's Bob. This
was it Richard Dreyfuss?
Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
So he plays the psychiatrist, and he says, Bob, I have come across this fascinating book that has just recently come out. And they pan over to the wall, and it's all the same book, and it's written by Richard Dreyfuss's character called Baby Steps. And I have always wanted to really write the real book of baby steps, because it is really so true that we cannot, I listen, I love momentum. I love when people talk about momentum, but the problem is, I think, and what I love about your book, Change Your Chain, is that we so badly want to get into momentum that we don't understand all the small steps that it takes first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before you can romance your life, right? Because I mean, romancing your life is really the momentum piece of your book. And because now, now we're in it and we're in love with it. But getting to that point.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and on that note, change your chain. A lot of times people don't realize they're making some changes, they're adding this into their life, they're taking this action step, but they still haven't unhooked themselves from a few things that are maybe slowing them down or keep pulling them back. So there may be some baggage or some relationships or some emotional stuff. There may be some things that you still haven't been able to disengage from. So change your chain is about, how do I change that thing that's keeping me tethered to something that I don't want to be tethered to anymore, or it's preventing me from really picking up the momentum. So, and part of that even could be your own boundaries that you've set for yourself. And maybe it's time, maybe they're not serving you anymore. Maybe you needed them for a while for particular reasons, but maybe now they are kind of like fencing you in and you need to let them out a little bit or get rid of them. So depending on the situation, yes, having the momentum means sometimes you also have to get rid of some stuff, let go of some things. And also, to your point about, baby steps, if you think about it, momentum and the tiny changes, and people don't, I think that they minimize how important and how impactful small changes can be. Because if you look at it from the standpoint of, if you've ever gone target shooting, or if you've ever gone bowling, if you've never, you know that if you're not hitting the target, you don't make a gigantic, quick, fast, huge change. You make a tiny change, because as the ball or the bullet, whatever is heading toward the target, that little teeny tiny shift you just made is gonna make a huge difference once it lands somewhere, right?
Right.
So, thinking that you have to just make a really big, huge, do a 180, you don't. You just need to start small and stay consistent and build on it.
That's fantastic.
Don't you find though, and again, I think you talk about this too, is when we're creating our new chain of behaviors, right? Our new chain of thoughts, our new chain of actions, that it also helps us break those old chains, right? Because as we're doing something new, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't always happen. I get that. It doesn't always happen, because we can still have hangups and, those nasty things can
the
crop
wrong
up.
person in your life, that you just need to call it a day. So, yeah, but I agree, because sometimes, a lot of times somebody is so focused on what they are trying to stop doing or get rid of that actually they're putting so much energy into it, they just make it bigger. And so sometimes, depending on the person and what it is, the situation, it's a matter of taking all of your focus off of that which you no longer desire and completely 100% on what you do want, and you basically just starve the other thing out. It just goes away by default because you're no longer feeding it.
That's fantastic.
Do you realize that you and I have talked for an hour without Jigman Freud?
No way.
Yes, and I have talked for an hour without Jigman Freud.
Wow.
Listen, I want to tell you something. I have had a blast with you.
Me too.
I seriously have enjoyed it. I can't wait to, really dig in deeper into your book. And when we do this later on, but I enjoyed you so very much. I enjoy what you're doing. I love your work. I love your attitude. I love your energy. And we're going to talk about that, I think, in the future, of how all this changes into energy that changes, ourselves down the road. Yeah. But would you do me a favor and let people know what's the best way to get a hold of you? How do we, not just the book, tell them about the things that you're doing, because I know you're a great coach, And I know you're a great speaker and coach. So why don't you tell everybody how to get a hold of you and what's the best ways to reach you?
So, like you said earlier, my website is always quick and easy, loreebischoff.com, and it is Loree, so it's kind of different, Bischoff.com. And then, of course, you can find out what private coaching with me is all about through there. My book, Common Sense Happiness, is there. It links right to Amazon. My other book, The Food Print Plan, is there, which is a great ebook that you can download. And it helps you create your own customized blueprint of a healthy eating lifestyle. So it's not a diet book. There's some coaching tools in there. So we work with your mental diet at the same time that we're working with changing your, physical diet. So that's there. I'm on Instagram. All the links to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter are all there. That's probably just the easiest way. Is just. Yeah. And what else? Oh, We're Talking Shift. We're Talking Shift is my podcast. It's on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and like you, I love to share information that just really helps people become inspired to make the changes that they want to make in their life, and to hopefully find their own version of peace and contentment and happiness, because it's going to be different for everyone. So I have, hopefully that you will love to be a guest on my show as well. And we share great information to inspire people to, create a life that they're in love with.
I love that. You're going to romance your life. Just get the book, Common Sense Happiness, Romance Your Life. Listen, I don't know. I had no idea what we were going to do today, but it was far more and better than I could ever hope or imagine. And so I can only thank you. And by the way, I just want to let people know, Loree is so gracious and so kind. I literally reached out to her and she actually responded back to me. Some stranger, I reached out to her and she was so kind to come back. And you just need to know that she is really the real deal. She really is sincere when she says that she wants to help people. That really is the very core and heart of who she is. And just the brief experiences I've had, it's just been unbelievable. And so I'm very grateful to you, and you're going to be on my gratitude list as well. So as well. And I think, James, this is where I turn it over to you, right?
Yes.
This is actually your show.
We threw. I wanted to get this together because we had a heck of a fun time with Loree the last time she was on, and I always love getting Jay involved in these things because he takes things in like 60 different directions that I never thought it would ever go, and this worked out. This was great today. I enjoyed this, and. And Jay, before we let everybody go, we got Loree's plugs in. Get your stuff in, homie.
Yeah, thank you. So hey, listen. So it's coachingmavericks.com. Listen, if you're a maverick and just feel like you just don't fit into the mold, I coach mavericks because you're unbranded. You are your own person, and I am the same way, and I understand it, and I want to get you there. And I work with CEOs, CFOs, C-suite professionals, business owners, all the way. It doesn't matter. Also, I do some life coaching. Also, you can also go and check out my show, which is called A New Direction with Jay Izso, and we literally interview best-selling authors like Loree Bischoff, who's going to be on my show, and we interview best-selling authors to help you find a new direction in your life, in your career, and in your business, and in success and leadership. And we are so dedicated to that we are changing. We are now in over 60 countries around the world, and we are changing the world. And I believe in that show wholeheartedly. You can find me at jayizzo.com. That's JAYZSO. Yes, it is a Z and an S. Think Zsa Zsa Gabor. That would be me. And I have a series of books, everything from How to Do Social Media Without Spending Money on Marketing, which was the very first book. And then the last book is Lessons from the Farm, Essential Rules for Success, available bookstores everywhere and wherever books are sold, including Amazon as well. And I think, let's see. Oh, and then if you go, if you want to look me up, you can look me as part of the National Speakers Association. I'm a professional member of the National Speakers Association, where you can find me. And by the way, I'm doing speaking engagements via Zoom. So I just spoke to a young group of young gymnasts and young ladies in New Jersey, believe it or not, who were a little bit concerned.
It always leads back to New Jersey on this show.
Yeah, well, think about it. These are young girls who are a little concerned. They haven't been able to work out in a gym, and things are not going to go right. They're going to get on a balance beam, they're going to fall, and I don't want them to be discouraged. They just need to understand that it's okay, and move on. So that was all part of it. So yeah, and I'm on every social media piece. If you can't find me, then there's something wrong with your browser. Okay, there it is.
Well, I always have to have you plug your hat there. You always, you always have the.
Let's talk about this. This is really cool because.
Talk about this, brother.
So, Command Sergeant Major Tom Satterley, who was in Black Hawk Down and spent 18 hours in a firefight in Mogadishu, has started this nonprofit organization. It's called All Secure, and it's called allsecurefoundation.org. And basically, what they do, him and his wife Jen, is they help combat veterans and veterans who are alcoholics, drug addicts. And they literally offer their services for free. They get them counseling. They do sessions. They have professionals and help them get jobs and deal with what we call PTS. We don't add the D because we don't believe it's a disorder. It's just, post-traumatic stress. And so I'm a financial supporter, but I'm also a vocal supporter of Tom and his wife Jen's group, and so that's what allsecurefoundation.org is about. And I'm proud to be displaying the hat and the gear and stuff like that, and happy to support them. So if you will do the same thing, please go to allsecurefoundation.org.
Do they sell those hats then there?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah, and they come in. By the way, they not only come in camo, they come in black and also blue. So you can, and then. You can also get yourself a blue T-shirt like I did. I'm not wearing it right now, but because I wore it yesterday. So it's in the laundry. But yes, you get a blue T-shirt, and and it's just a great organization. Yeah.
I need the hat, maybe the T-shirt too. So I'll check it out.
And they have I think they have the women's V cut too as well.
Nice.
No, Loree, I'm telling you, they've thought of everything. His wife Jen is a gem. She's awesome. She really is. And his book is called All Secure, which, by the way, you can. I interviewed him on the show, and his book's called All Secure. It's a fabulous read about the real life stories of being a Delta Force. He was in that elite team called Delta Force, and so if you want to learn what 18 hours of a firefight was like in Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down, there was actually 4 Black Hawks that went down, and he talks. He's very honest about what he's had to deal with and why he started this organization to help our guys and gals who have to deal with it. So it's something I'm really proud to be a part of.
I love it. I'm gonna check it out.
Please do.
I always try to make sure that Jay mentions that on the show, because he always there's times I have you on and you don't even plug your own stuff. I'm like, you need I'm like, as they used to say in the wrestling business, you got to sell them gimmicks, baby. Wait. You got to.
I mean, look at me. I look like I'm a cartoon character.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Loree. Thank you, Jay. It's been an honor and a privilege, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Great, you guys. I've really enjoyed it. This is totally my pleasure. That hour flew by, so I would love to do it again. It really, really was great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to having you on my show too. And I think we'll have equally a good time.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. There they go, Loree Bischoff and Dr. Jay Izso. As I always like to say, the biggest star in the business. Don't believe him, just ask him, he'll tell you. And that wraps it up here from our world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast. Find us on the old Facebook. Old Facebook. And then go find us on the Twitch. Find us on the Periscope. And